The text came through at 10:37 a.m. Just a happy kid on a field trip. By 10:39, the mother was on the phone, dialing 911. Before we dive into the story, tell us where you're watching from. What changed in those 2 minutes? On the surface, nothing more than a smiling child with her juice box. But hidden inside that picture was a detail so small most people would have missed it. For this mother, it stood out like a cracked thread in an otherwise neat fabric, impossible to ignore once seen. And it all began in the middle of an ordinary morning at home. The morning rhythm carried on as usual, quiet and unremarkable. A cold coffee mug sat on the counter, its surface marked by a faint ring, the kind of detail that might have gone unnoticed, if not for the way her hand lingered near it. She absently lifted her phone, checking once more for updates, third time since breakfast. That small screen had become her lifeline, a tether to her daughter's school trip across town. She could still picture the bus pulling away, sneakers bouncing on the steps, an excited wave caught in the rear view of her memory. The classroom app had posted the plan for the day. Zoo by mid-morning, lunch by noon. She wasn't the only parent watching the updates closely, waiting for proof that everything was unfolding as expected. When the phone buzzed at 10:37, her pulse lifted. A photo filled the screen. Her daughter's grin as wide as the juice box she proudly raised. Across the frame, classmates laughed into the sun. Behind them, the tiger enclosure loomed in soft focus. Teachers posted like sentinels at the border of the group. For a moment, everything looked perfectly in place. Relief settled in. Such simple reassurance delivered in a single snapshot. She almost set the device down, hand hovering toward the counter. Almost. There was a pause, the kind that slips in without warning. Something inside her asked her to look again, that quiet tug of recognition only a parent knows, the one that interrupts even the most ordinary gesture. Her fingers stretched the screen open, magnifying what had first seemed like nothing more than a cheerful pose. The closer view brought her daughter into sharper relief. Flushed cheeks, smiles sticky with juice, sunlight caught in her hair. Then her gaze fell lower, to the small wrist peeking out below the carton. Bare. The bracelet wasn't there. That silver chain had lived on her daughter's arm every day since her grandmother first fastened it in place. Not through baths, not through scraped knees, not even through rushed mornings where shoes went on the wrong feet by accident. Never once had it been removed. It wasn't just jewelry. To the child, it was a magic bracelet. The one thing she insisted on, fought for, believed in. And now, in this clear morning image taken less than 3 miles away, her wrist was empty. Her grip tightened. The photo remained open in one hand while the other found the recent calls list. The sound of the zoo in the background, so normal, so light-hearted, suddenly felt too far away. Her thumb moved to enlarge the image again, frame by frame, as if the next swipe might explain what the first one had missed. Her eyes fixed on the photograph as new details emerged. She noticed things other people wouldn't, small cues that passed unseen unless you knew the child behind them. Uneven pigtails. The left shoe always tied tighter than the right. Little tells that belonged to no one but her daughter. At first, there was comfort in those familiar traits. The dent on the juice box, the juice she knew had to be apple. But just below, something was off. The silver bracelet was gone. Her daughter called it her magic bracelet and would howl if anyone tried to take it off. Its absence jarred her, like hearing a familiar song a half step off, leaving her heart knocked out of rhythm. She shifted the frame slightly left with a trembling thumb. That's when she saw it, a sleeve brushing her daughter's shoulder. Not the sunflower print blouse worn by the teacher she knew, but navy blue fabric, the kind no one in the school group was wearing. A man's hand lingered on the pink backpack strap, fingers caught at an odd angle. The contrast dug into her. Thousands of mornings fixing that strap, combing that hair. Those everyday repetitions sharpened her vision now. It wasn't paranoia, it was recognition. Her call to the classroom line rang out again, filling the kitchen with cheerful hold music that clashed with the dryness in her throat. Behind the laughter and background noise in the photo, she thought she caught the sound of ducks. The pond exhibit. Yet the setting seemed wrong. She didn't expect group breaks there. It felt out of place for chaperones steering children through crowded exhibits. The photo bore a timestamp, 10:38 a.m. Just that morning, she'd brushed sunscreen over the wrist that should have glimmered with silver. The space felt naked now, empty in a way only she would notice. The memory pressed against the image, and her hands shook as the photo zoomed out again. The full frame showed an ordinary field trip moment. A smiling child in the sunshine. A juice box held high. To other parents, nothing about it would stand out. But for her, that missing bracelet was proof something wasn't right. Her gaze returned to her daughter's face, the familiar dimple, the bright eyes, the juice-slick grin. But the angle gnawed at her. It wasn't her daughter's hand holding the phone. Someone else was guiding the frame, tilting her chin toward the lens. Her chest tightened. The bracelet was gone. The photo didn't feel like a keepsake. It felt like a warning. And as her grip on the counter steadied, the background hold music kept playing. The clock began to matter in a way it hadn't minutes earlier. A cheerful, recorded message promised someone would pick up soon, but she knew promises like that moved at the pace of institutions, not of mothers who see danger. Time dragged while the same tune looped, tinny and bright against the heaviness pressing her chest. She pictured the zoo's winding paths, places where children might scatter beyond the view of chaperones, too many corners where a stranger could blend into the background. When the secretary finally answered, the voice sounded rushed, wrapped in the routine noise of a busy office. The suggestion came quickly and firmly. Wait until lunchtime check-in, or leave a message. She didn't wait. The office offered voicemail. She hung up and called 911. The first response carried doubt. "Ma'am, schools run tight trips with plenty of staff." The operator's voice trailed, but she cut in. "Her bracelet is gone." The words came sharp, plain, and from memory too practiced to question. She gave pieces of her child that no stranger could. The apple juice she always chose, the scuffed left sneaker, the rainbow scrunchie looped only one side of her hair. If you've ever been told to stay calm while reporting an emergency, you know how hollow that advice feels. Training doesn't account for the knot in a parent's throat, or for the sight of a bare wrist where silver should gleam. Calm didn't come. Clarity did. She pressed the facts forward, one after another, until the air between breaths filled with a silence that meant someone on the other end was finally listening. Keys clattered on the dispatcher's desk. "Units are being sent to the zoo." The tone shifted, crisp now, urgent. "Tell me again about her clothes." She listed everything. The dinosaur shirt peeking from an unzipped jacket, the sneakers rubbed bare at the toes, the bracelet that never should have been missing. With each detail, the search grew tighter, as though coordinates were locking into place. What mattered was no longer what might be lost, but where to look. Through the thin wire of the phone, she heard the faint rise of sirens, small at first, growing steady. Moments earlier, she'd been just another caller in a queue. Now her words had set something in motion. And as the minutes closed in on the hour, someone else was already moving toward the scene, where the school trip and flashing lights would soon converge. 2 police cruisers stood waiting as the field trip bus pulled into the school lot. Lights still flashed in measured rhythm, painting the pavement in streaks of blue. Teachers guided children off with practiced calm, but the set of their shoulders betrayed nerves. The principal stepped forward, his handshake stiff, voice careful, while scanning the officers' faces for answers. One of the detectives leaned in close with the mother's phone. Officers used the photo to narrow where to look, focusing on the duck pond and the unfamiliar navy sleeve tucked near her daughter's shoulder. The missing bracelet still stood as the clearest signal. Its absence mattered enough to move the search faster than usual. Later, investigators would note the mother's sharp eye helped them act sooner than they might have otherwise. If this part resonates with you, leave a comment. It helps others feel seen. In the schoolyard, the scene was oddly split. Children laughed, swapping stories about tigers and ice cream sandwiches, while a quiet current of urgency swept under the surface. The mother stood close to the bus steps, knuckles whitening around her phone case as names were called. Lunchboxes and backpacks were returned one by one. But when the line thinned, there was still no sign of the pink dinosaur shirt she'd described again and again. At the zoo across town, another thread of the search was tightening. An officer spotted movement near a maintenance shed. A man wearing a navy jacket stepped into view, holding a half-finished apple juice box. He wasn't on the day's roster, though his badge claimed otherwise. Just steps away, resting on a bench scattered with crayon marks, a silver bracelet glinted in the light. Back at school, the principal's walkie-talkie crackled with life. "We have visual," a strained voice confirmed. Teachers kept steering the remaining children toward the building, voices pitched high and steady in an effort to smooth over what none of them fully understood. Backpacks bumped together in the hallway. Giggles spilled into echoes. The mother didn't follow. She stayed rooted by the curb, her attention fixed on the narrow space by the doors. She stared at it the way someone studies the horizon, waiting for a shape to appear. What came next arrived not in sirens or commands, but in a sound more familiar than any alarm. A small set of sneakers scraping against the pavement, drawing closer. Her knees found the ground the moment the classroom door opened. Then came the sight that stole her breath. Her daughter's small face, peeking from around the principal's leg. In one hand, she clutched the silver bracelet as if it had never left. In the other, a juice sticky carton pressed to her side. The little voice came out calm, almost puzzled. "Why is police here, Mama?" The question floated up into the tangle of uniforms and whispers, carrying the kind of innocence that made every adult freeze. The reunion stretched and collapsed at once, relief and dread tangled together. Her hands pressed against her daughter's cheeks, memorizing warmth. She touched the turquoise bead on the bracelet, cool against her skin. She checked the scuffed sneaker, the dinosaur shirt, the steady rhythm of breath at her collarbone. She did it the way someone feels a forehead for fever, methodical, urgent, unwilling to miss a single sign. Behind the moment, officers murmured to each other. Word spread about how the man had been intercepted near a service gate, carrying juice boxes and a badge forged that morning. He'd told the girl her mother sent him to take her for ice cream. The bracelet had come off in a magic trick game by the duck pond, a move meant to disarm without leaving marks. It's a reminder that predators sometimes use everyday lures, rather than grand, obvious threats. The girl leaned into her mother's shoulder, oblivious to how the morning had twisted beneath her feet. She chattered about penguins and coloring pages, her sentences tumbling out without pause. Her mother kept smoothing hair, fastening straps, and adjusting shoelaces, each gesture a quiet demand for proof that she was still intact. Teachers lingered at a distance, their smiles set in place but their silence thick. The principal began to speak about new checks and added screenings, his tone clipped, rehearsed. Few of his words reached her. All that cut through was the soft humming from her daughter, the same crooked tune usually saved for the ride home after school. The girl's wrist jangled lightly as she reached up to pat her mother's damp cheeks. "Don't be sad, Mama. I didn't lose it for real." The simple reassurance came with the scent of zoo popcorn and the weight of familiar arms draped against her. In the principal's office, the air felt smaller than before, crowded with both relief and the uneasy work of what came next. The juice box sat half-finished on the principal's desk, its bent straw still angled where a small mouth had left it. Around the faint ring it made on the wood veneer, paperwork spread in uneven stacks. Incident reports, policy drafts, and dismissal forms for the maintenance worker who no longer belonged on campus. The mother traced the circle of moisture with one fingertip while the principal spoke in clipped phrases about isolated incidents and current safeguards. His shoes tapped the floor in steady rhythm, a gesture more suited to budget meetings than the weight of what had just happened. In that district, the immediate changes included new identification badges with holographic seals for field trip volunteers, real-time location updates for off-campus groups, and scheduled radio calls every 15 minutes. The district moved quickly to tighten procedures, closing gaps that had seemed minor until the bracelet proved otherwise. Before that morning, a single annual background check had been considered sufficient. The school app had only updated location data twice an hour. Those details were suddenly seen in sharper light. At the next PTA meeting, the community's unease surfaced in public. Some parents pressed for transfers, others pushed for extra security. The mother sat quietly near the back, present but reserved, her daughter beside her, idly spinning the bracelet around her wrist as if unaware of the stares. The room carried more tension than raised voices. Parents found themselves paying attention to details that once passed unnoticed. A supply door left propped open, how often aides changed shifts, how easily someone might slip into the crowd at dismissal. By the following month, the superintendent required new uniforms for custodial staff and a 3-reference rule for volunteers. These adjustments felt practical, almost obvious now. But they only arrived because one parent refused to look away from a missing bracelet. The photo that began it all was later used in staff training sessions. Teachers practiced scanning for subtle differences in the background of group pictures, learning to notice what algorithms might pass over. At home, the aftermath settled into routine. The child now knew to shout pineapple if an unfamiliar adult came near, a safe word chosen simply because she disliked the fruit and would never shout it by accident. Her backpack carried a discreet tracking tag sewn into the lining. Each morning, she showed off her magic bracelet to a teacher with pride, proof in plain sight that nothing had slipped away. The photo from that morning stayed on the mother's phone. Late at night, when the house was quiet, she looked at it again, still unsettled by what it revealed and by what it almost cost. The bracelet gleamed faintly on her daughter's wrist as she slept, its silver chain lifting with each soft breath. In the darkened room, the mother stayed perched at the bedside, watching how the turquoise bead caught the light. Nothing outside looked unusual, but inside, everything had shifted. That was the power of intuition. It asks you to notice when something small feels out of place, even before you can explain why. Her mind had registered the oddness of the missing bracelet before she could name it. Many parents recognize that kind of quick reflex, the slight jolt when a detail doesn't fit. It isn't science to her, just a lived instinct. That whispered tug had been right once, and it reshaped how she moved through everyday moments. Some routines took new shapes. Each morning before school, her daughter proudly held up her wrist for a bracelet check, turning it into a shared ritual, like a secret handshake. They also kept their word pineapple as a code between them, the signal that meant stop, pay attention, come close. Outsiders might read it as overcaution, but within their home, it gave them both a sense of steady ground. She learned to let intuition guide small checks without letting fear run the household. The goal wasn't to live in worry, but to listen for quiet signals without brushing them aside. A parent's unease isn't always proof, but it can be the starting point for questions that matter. During walks, her daughter liked to point out security cameras, naming each one as a watchful eye. The mother didn't correct her, even when she knew some were only dummies. Better, she thought, to raise a child who notices than one who assumes safety will always take care of itself. For herself, she chose one simple habit, remembering little details. What shoes her daughter wore that morning, which scrunchie pulled back her hair. A simple detail, what your child usually wears or a unique item, can help authorities fast if it's ever needed. That felt practical, not fearful. A way to turn awareness into action. Every parent has moments when a flicker of doubt rises with no clear cause. Many wave it away. She'd learned not to. Small concerns deserve a second look precisely because they are small. Easy to check, easy to respond to, without panic. That one absent bracelet had revealed a hole in safety big enough for others to fall through. What lingered wasn't just the memory of fear, but the reminder that ordinary awareness can ripple outward. One detail opened space for everyone else to see more clearly. And in its quiet way, that became proof of what intuition could hold. That single photo remains in her phone, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder that even ordinary moments can hold quiet warnings. The missing bracelet might seem small when measured against zoo animals and juice boxes. Yet parents know significance isn't about size. The story now circles through parent groups and teacher lounges, not to stir fear, but as a steady reminder. Your attention matters. Sometimes noticing what's missing keeps everyone safe. Share this with a teacher, neighbor, or new parent. Small observations can change outcomes. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.